Hello again, Isabel Evans here with another vlog for Scottish Testing Group. Thank you to them. Now, last time I was talking a little bit about what do we mean by the word quality and talking about Garvin's quality viewpoints. So manufacturing, product, user, value, transcendent. Different ways that we can describe what we mean by the word quality. And this time, I want to build on that a little bit and talk about what do we mean by software testing. Because in the same way, what we mean by software testing and how different people describe it depends on where they are in a historical perspective of software testing, the history of that part of the industry, what domain they're working in, what stage in the life cycle of a piece of software or of a system. There's lots of different ways that people talk about software testing, so I think it repays a little thinking about. So one of the things people can talk about is that we test things to show whether they work or not. So taking quite a positive view, and I think that is still valid. We need to know whether something works. Can we carry out the tasks, specifically for particular users? So if we have quite a narrow group of users for this piece of software or this system, it's quite valid to say, does it work for that group of users? User viewpoint of quality. Bugs elsewhere in things that those users are not going to do maybe don't matter to us. And in particular, when people are accepting pieces of software, you'll see them focusing on, can I carry my tasks out? So it's a valid way of looking at software testing. You also get people talking about software testing as an activity where you're going to look for bugs, you're going to look for defects, you're going to look for problems, you're going to try and break it. And that's also valid because particularly for software that's got a wide user group range, where it's being used by many people in many different ways, we need to explore it and find out what happens in different circumstances. We need to look and see what is going to be the experience for different people using it in different ways. Or if we've got something that is safety critical, we need to push it up to the limits of that system use to make sure that the fail-safes are in there, to make sure that it fails gracefully, and so on and so forth. So you can test things. Just software testing is an activity where you find out whether something works. It's also an activity where you try and break something. It's also an activity which is about providing information. So some people define software testing as being about providing information, and particularly information that's going to aid decision making, perhaps around risks, perhaps around what's ready and what's not ready. Information that's going to help with decisions around whether we release this software or not, whether it goes live. And also people talk about software testing as being a preventative measure, so it stops things going wrong in production. You finding problems and identifying what works early on, looking for workarounds, and also looking for ways to improve how the software is designed and built. And there are other ways that as well that people define it, but I'm not going to go through every single one of them. I'm just saying there are lots of different ways that people define software testing. Some people define it as a set of activities. Some people define it in terms of its goals. And that's quite different. Some people define it as something that's a highly cognitive activity that requires intelligence and human thought. And particularly we think of Bark and Bolton here and what they talk about. Other people define it as being a very repetitive and a very routine process. And I can think of people who've done that. And actually, it's a mix of all these different things. And it is different things to different people. And so it's not simple to say, this is what software testing is and this is how we do it. It has many definitions, it has many approaches. And through its history, you can see these definitions becoming more or less popular over time. I talked in another vlog about my experiences over the last 40 years and things changing. And one of the things that's changed and changed back and changed back is how people define software testing. And this is important for me for my research, because if we're looking at tools and automation for testing, one of the discussion areas around it is what is it possible to automate and what is it not possible to automate. Is there in fact no automation at all? Nothing is automatic, which is, I think, probably one view. Or is it that everything can be automated? It's possible to have automatic testing, which is another view I've heard people express. And there's a whole spectrum between those. So what do we mean by automation and tools? Again, another question. It's different things for different people. But if we are going to apply tools to software testing, if we are going to use them to support our testing, let's be somewhere in the middle between those extremes for this vlog. If we're going to use tools, if we're going to have some parts of our activities supported by tools, what is it that we can support with tools? And of course, depending on how we define software testing, we get different answers. So if you think that testing is fundamentally and mainly a cognitive activity that requires the human brain, you'll see the tools in the way that maybe a carpenter sees their tools. There may be an extension of you and you're controlling them. But if you see software testing as basically routine and repetitive, you'll see it as being much more like an automatic washing machine or a factory production line with robots. And I think it might be different in different domains and with different teams and different people, different goals. So one of the things I want to do in the next bit of research is think about who's doing the testing. What sort of people are they? What are their goals? What's their backgrounds? What are they trying to find out? When are they doing that testing? At what stage in the development of and deployment of the software? What actually can be tested and what can't be tested? And try and think about what is appropriate in different situations. And in some ways, you could see that's been quite a small and trivial thing to do. But the more I look at it, the more complex it gets. So my next 3 years is going to be around working out who's doing testing, what they're doing, what their approaches are, how they're going about it, and therefore what tool set is most appropriate. And I think it's going to be different depending on the domain you're in, what your team structure is like, what skills they've got, and also whereabouts in the network stack you're working. If you're working out on user-facing software or if you're further down in the technology, closer to the hardware. So I think I feel this in me as quite a challenge. I feel this is going to be a difficult thing to do. That's for my challenge. I also feel somebody needs to be writing a history of software testing, and one that's unbiased and looks at all the different ways that this has been done over the years since it started. And I'd want that to go right back to Ada Lady Lovelace testing Babbage's calculation engines and suggesting ways that it could be used that he hadn't thought of, and come on from there up to date. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Why are we doing it? And out of that, maybe we can get a view of what tools do we really need. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you again in another vlog. Bye for now.